Welcome to Blueprints for Brilliance Coaching Insights, a podcast by coaches for coaches. Our guests share their hard-won wisdom to help you grow your coaching business and create a life of success. So get ready to unlock the blueprints to your success. Welcome, everyone, to our newest episode. I'm here, Jeanne Willson. I'm here with the amazing Francois Lupien from How to Become More. And we have an amazing guest today. Her name is Kelly Knowles, and she is an inner leadership coach. She likes to help develop people to their highest potential. So we are thrilled to have you. Welcome, Kelly, to the show.
Thank you, Jeanne and Francois. I'm thrilled to be with you today.
Tell us how you become a coach.
So quite literally several years ago, my husband and I were listening to a speaker, and he was talking about personalities. One of the things that the speaker said that I just found so on point. And I looked at my husband, I said, I'm a red, you're a white, and this explains everything. And we celebrated 20 years this year, so we're figuring it out. But he was talking about a personality profile called the color code. And there are so many good ones out there. This one's been around over 30 years. What I learned is that the color code looks at your driving core motive. What drives you innately? And for me, I overuse this word. It was a game changer. It helped me to understand why I act the way I do and why so often I feel like a fish out of water. So in our pre-talk today, one of the things that I had shared was I grew up in East Tennessee, but we were originally from Illinois. So East Tennessee by way of Midwestern parents. So I sound Southern. I have some of the Southern style, but when I start talking, people are like, we don't know what to do with you, because I come out a little more direct than they had planned. So that is where I found understanding what drives me was such a pivotal moment for understanding really how to communicate better, how to get along better with others. I then found myself speaking for an alumni event and did a presentation. People started contacting me, hey, do you coach? And it was the first time I had formally thought about coaching. I think I've always done it naturally, but it's so important for me that people know they're here on purpose for a purpose. And by understanding that driving core motive, it also helps them to get their goals accomplished. We see companies do this all the time. We do it as individuals, thousands of dollars on programs, and companies spend money on development. I read an article the other day. I think it was only 8% of people achieve their goals.
Wow.
What's driving you? And so that is how the whole coaching piece talk. I love to incorporate that when I can into speaking events that I do as well. But so often people say things just land. And I think we identify those things that were already part of who we are. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to articulate that.
Wow, this is very interesting. I didn't know it was up to 8. Interestingly enough, the stats that I have is only 2% of people have their goals written down. 3% have goals. And then, so therefore, 2% of people that don't have goals actually are manifesting them. So I'm saying, or actually, 2 and 3 is 5 and plus another 3. So that means that if people don't have their goals written down, like for sure it's not going to happen. And that's something that needs, the clarity don't come out of the blue. It comes intentionally. And that's something that is powerful. And you said you're here on a purpose for a purpose. Do you help people discover the purpose and what, or is that part of what you do to help the people with that inner leadership coach?
That first thing I love to do when I coach someone individually is we do the color code. And it gives me a few tools. It also gives them a tool. Anybody can go take the color code profile. I do have a link for a discount. But the piece that I think is the money, if you will, is the debrief. We've all taken personality profiles and then we walk away. What can you take with you? What are those pieces that are tactical and actionable? And that is, to me, where the debrief that I do with people is so important. It first helps me understand how they like to be communicated with. Some people need a softer approach. Others want direct to the point, bottom line up front. Others need time to digest. There is a certain personality profile that when I see this, I know they're going to need a lot of time to digest what we've covered. So they may not be processing immediately, but about a week later, I'm going to get an email that has all the information that they have processed. Someone like me, we just download as we go. We do need to process, but not as much And that to me gives me a tool for communication. The next piece is we start to talk about where their pain points are, because so often that gives you a clue as to what have they tried or what have they not let themselves try, whether it's from fear, overthinking, and so on.
So everybody listening here, take a 10,000-foot overview of the brilliancy of what she's doing right now is connecting with people, giving them value, from that value, identifying it, and then seeing if there's a fit for her to help. This is wonderful. You're awesome.
I think everyone's an individual. And one of the things that I always talk about, no matter what profile is your favorite, we all have one, is make sure this is not something you establish your identity with. Your identity is you as an individual, because that is something I've seen with some people and some profiles out there that establishes their identity to the point where they stop drinking a certain kind of coffee. And I would offer, give me a break. That's not the purpose of this. It's very important that you understand what this can do for you practically. And especially when we think about achieving goals, I think we're all built for community. I think we are all built to connect. That being said, not everyone connects and needs the same amount of community. And some people are very independently driven. My husband is so good at just setting his schedule and not needing another soul around. I gain energy from people. So there's a difference there. It's not a bad or good. It is a both. And just understanding that about yourself can help you figure out a better way to achieve your goals. It gets pretty exciting.
That does sound exciting. I love that. Understand what drives you, because you're right. Everybody is motivated by something different. And as a coach, you want to get to that so you can help them enjoy the process as well and get excited about it.
Absolutely. And more than that, it's helping to ensure it's not about me. Whether I'm speaking to an audience, whether I'm doing a workshop for a small group at a corporation, or I'm doing coaching one-on-one, it is not about me. If folks do not leave that experience thinking, I have something of value, that was money well spent, I can take action on something. It's not just a transactional experience, in my view. I want it to be transformational. And if we're going to do that, then the focus has to be on them. If it becomes the focus is on me, I'm not doing a good job and I'm not serving my client in whichever way they're a client.
I
I
love
love
that.
it. It's not about me. It's about the value, the transformation the audience gets. And
Absolutely.
so that's why people were coming to see you and saying, hey, can you coach or do you coach? Because you're bringing value. I'm curious, what was the title of the talk that you gave for people to come and see you and says, hey, do you coach? Just out of curiosity, do you remember?
I do.
For the
All
audience.
right, y'all, this was January of 2020. The college I went to was doing a spring showcase, and I was their first alumni speaker. It was broadcast live and then recorded, and it was 2020 vision. Which hue are you looking through? And if we think about what was going on at the beginning of that year, I think it's funny because I had no idea what we were all about to encounter in 2020 worldwide, no matter where you sit on that particular topic. I do remember the topic because I think, okay, that's a little funny. 2020 vision. What hue are you looking through?
Wow. So let's talk about the people that you work with. So tell us a story or a transformation from one of your clients. You don't have to give us their name, but tell us how that happened. Maybe one of your favorite stories or one of your favorite people.
Yeah. So one of my favorite people was actually one of the first people that reached out to me about coaching. She was also an alum of the school and had tuned in to that event and reached out and said, do you coach? This person was in a dead-end job, and they are one of the most delightful people. Their ability to sell knocks me down. If you can convince me to buy say a name brand product that has to do with makeup, that's a big deal. I am a drugstore girl. And so she just has an incredible ability to sell, but she found herself in a role in a corporation that was going nowhere. In addition, I don't think they were doing much to make her feel like she had any value. And so one of the things that we started off with was the color code. And we started looking at, what does the change look like? A single woman responsible for herself, living a long way away from family. So there's different factors to think about there. And we started working together and really starting to deep dive into What was holding her back from making a move? And then also looking at understanding her value. Now, I want to put a differentiator in there. I do not do counseling. I'm always very careful that I don't drop and cross that line, because there are people out there who are specially trained for counseling. Sometimes they'll coach with me and they'll also have a counselor at the same time. So I think it's important to make that differentiator. For this person, it was, they just weren't getting what I call their superpowers, and they have them. So over the course of time, they ended up interviewing for other jobs, and now they are doing tremendously well in a new role. They've been promoted. And I think what makes me so proud for her, but it also is an honor to me when she has put a post out there occasionally. Hey, if you want to see some change in your life, Kelly is who you need. To me, that is a win. It wasn't a post I asked for. And it was she did it. We all know if we're going to promote ourselves, we ask for those things. And in this particular case, it wasn't an ask, she did. So I've loved watching her progress. I've loved seeing her confidence build. And she also has her own travel agency on the side. So as I said, she's phenomenal at relationships herself. She is phenomenal at serving clients. And we were able to get her into a corporate role that had the ability for growth. And she built that confidence in her own value, because I don't think she was seeing that at the beginning. She was in a role that was just beating her down, to be honest.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. Change. You've transformed her life, basically. And I'm sure family life, husband sees her differently, kids or whatever, they all surround, because now she's more fulfilled. You talk about the color code, people's colors. How about you give us an overview of what the colors are, and maybe a characteristic or two of, you know what I mean, explaining a little bit so we have a better understanding. And that serves also as a teaser for people to go and see and find out what color they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do want to say one thing, if you will allow me. She did the work. So I think it's so important that I give her credit, because at the end of the day, she didn't have to do things. She didn't have to take that dive and do some of that inner work, if you will. And I'm just quite honestly honored that I got to work with her, and that I've been able to see her progress and see the transformation. If that's a mic drop for me, it doesn't mean wealth or riches or fame or anything like that, but to see someone be able to move into what I call their next, but also to do it in a way that they know their superpowers, they know what they're capable of. I just think that's a big deal to me. Back to the color code. So there are 4 colors, and it's really a way just to tie in a driving core motive. So you have red, white, blue, and yellow. Red, if you are a primary red, your driving core motive is power. Now let's hang there for a moment, because some people think, uh-oh, your reds are going to get you from point A to point B. You'll often hear them say, what's the end goal? Where are we going? How do we take action on this? Then you have blue. They're often described as a driving core motive of intimacy. I like to reframe that to connection, because people think of intimacy more in a physical way, and it's so much more than that. So blues are your connectors. They are all about value and service. Oh, guess what? They may struggle with overthinking because they're perfectionists. You also have yellow. Yellow's driving core motive is fun. Now, when I've had some yellow clients and they're like, oh, is that bad? No way. These are the people that are in the moment. They're often phenomenal visionaries. They usually bring energy. They are some of the most inclusive people. They want everybody to be part of what is going on. They're a great person to have around. And then finally, you have white. The driving core motive of a white is peace. So that can be a beautiful thing, because they're always going to accept you. They want you to accept them. They're all about maintaining balance and steady state. Now, you heard me say earlier, I'm a red, you're a white. This explains everything. So in my personal relationship, we have somebody driven by power, and then we have somebody driven by peace. You think it makes for a little bit of fire and ice, as they like to say. So the piece that I think is such an important part of this is, again, we're all individuals. So there's a piece of the pie. I'm a red and blue is my secondary. You could be a red and a yellow. So it's really important to have that full profile to get the big picture. But what it does is it gives you a feel for how to communicate. If I am recognizing, okay, I'm talking to someone that's a primary red, We're going to go fast. We're going to be direct. We're going to bottom line up front. And if they want the details, they'll ask me for it. Think about what a great tool that is for working with executives. If I am working with someone who is extremely detail oriented and they want every single I dotted and every T crossed, and they're going to argue things like Oxford commas. Okay, we've got to talk for a moment and give them time to digest. So that's where the color code can be really powerful. First, it's phenomenal for self-awareness. And then it's also a great way to have a better tool for communication with the people you work with.
Sorry, what's the color of the person that is detailed and wants details and get back to you? What color is that?
Usually, if they want the details, it's usually a blue. If they want the bottom line, and then they may ask you for the details, it's often a red primary. Their bottom line front, what's the end goal? Just tell me the bottom line. Now, here's where it gets fun, is we are complicated human beings. You heard me say earlier, I'm a red-blue. What does that mean? Most of the time I'm ran by logic, drive, let's go. But that secondary blue comes in, that's emotion and details. So where this becomes really powerful is understanding also what you're like in a place of stress. Not that anybody has any, we're just pretending there might be some stress.
I love it. That's interesting. There were a few things because for business.
I think for me, what I have discovered is when I am my true self, you get the same Kelly here as you would in the grocery store, as you would at home, as you would in a house of worship. What you're going to see maybe is I might modulate. I might think about, who am I talking with? I might try to have more situational awareness. So what I love about it is it allows me to understand who I am at my core. It doesn't mean that I don't work to be a good communicator, but I find that authenticity is critical to me. Now I'm working on a keynote right now, which I'm very excited about, because people think authenticity is easy, and I'm going to offer it's not. You've got to know who you are before you can be authentic.
Ooh, I love that. Love that.
Absolutely. And
So-
then let's just tag in. You said the 4 colors, and you said superpower. People, it's important to know their superpower. How do you go about what's superpower? What does it do in people's lives? And once they find it, how do they blossom? That kind of stuff.
I had someone tell me many years ago in a job interview, they did a profile like a lot of companies do. I don't necessarily agree with that, but they did it. And she sat me down at lunch at a nice restaurant. She said, I'll never hire you. And I thought, oh, this is going to be fun. She said, you're an instigator. And I took that as an insult. And then I got to thinking about, who am I? I start things. So in the last 2 organizations I've worked at, I've worked in law firms for close to 14 years. I started book clubs because I love reading professional development books and I want community. That blue wants community. So I started book clubs. I started my own business. I wrote a book. So being an instigator is not an insult to me. It means that I start. The way that she viewed it was different. So I think that what we have to understand is what our superpowers are. Now, I'm going to tell you a secret that if you start to learn the color code, you'll be like, that's not a secret. We Reds think we're right all the time. If I have character, guess what? I know I'm not. So I think that's where understanding your superpowers, understanding you're a person who gets things done, understanding you're a person that can be direct. That's all great, but I don't get to be a punk. I have to recognize and understand and care about other people. And that's where character comes in. The other piece with superpowers, I think, is so often we have a tendency to beat ourselves up over things we're not good at. That's why I could read Fortune magazine, the Wall Street Journal, whatever finance you want to put out there for the rest of my life. I have a master's degree in business. It's not my superpower. So what I learned from someone many years ago in a seminar is when you have what he was described as limitations, how do you neutralize them? So if you think about someone who's a phenomenal visionary, they're a leader. I know a man, he was voted most likely to start a cult in high school. He can convince anybody to do anything. But let me tell you what he surrounds himself with. He surrounds himself with detail people because he is not a detail person. So he knows to neutralize his limitations, work within his strengths. But if he didn't have those other people with those additional superpowers, I don't think he would be nearly as effective as he is. So I think that's where knowing your superpowers is so important. And then it keeps you from beating yourself up on those really hard days when you know there are certain things that just they're just not natural for you.
I love that. I love the idea of surrounding yourself, like focusing on what you do well and surrounding yourself with other people who can do outsourcing what you are not good at. Because, like you said, sometimes we just think, oh, I'm not really good at this. I need to get better at it. When your actual energy should be focused on, but I'm really good at this. So that's where I should stay. I love that.
Jeannie, I joke that I am probably a founder of the club, but I'm a long card carrying member of the I have to figure it out all by myself. And I have learned that I don't have to. But I think so many of us came up that way. You'll figure it out. And what I tagged on to that phrase was, and you have to do it all by yourself. No, you don't. And so things are better when you think about, okay, who can I surround myself with? What are some other folks that have these as their strengths? I've heard a lot of people refer to it in different ways. The one that I like is that personal board of directors. You all have probably heard that term, but how you bring people into your life that are that board of directors for you. So you have someone to talk to, whether it is emotional, whether it is financial, etc. You don't have to do this by yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you. Are you in the midst of, or did you write a book that you'd like to tell us about?
So I started a book back in my 20s, and it's now finished. It's now published. It's on Kindle and Paperbook and Audible. And the title gets some people, and others are like, don't know what you're talking about. And I'll tell you, and we'll see what you think. So the title of the book is Chin Hairs and Other Things Mama Didn't Tell You, From Surviving to Thriving in Your 20s and 30s. I started it in my 20s because I call that, some people now call it your quarter life crisis. I was thinking I was going through second puberty in my 20s, and I'm thinking, what is going on? And so I wanted to write a book about my experiences and what I wish I had been told. Now, my mother has approved of the book. She's very fine with the book, so we're not bashing mama, just so you know. It has been read by people 18 to 78, men and women. I literally got a message on LinkedIn from a guy I met at a speaking workshop in New Jersey a couple of months ago. We got to talking. I said, I wrote a book. He said, I want to hear it. And he literally sent me a message on LinkedIn last night and said, oh my gosh, that section about the wastebasket and a roommate is so true. So it does have a lot of, I think, female-oriented commentary in it, but I think it transcends because we all have those years of development. And so I also included a lot of humor because the book covers heavy subjects. The book covers things such as your career, your choice on where to live, whether or not to have children, faith, losing a parent. Those are heavy subjects. So I do a lot of self-deprecation. I tell all the stupid things I've done, and I try to use a lot of humor so that when you're reading the book, you're laughing, you're smiling, you still have some poignant moments, but it doesn't feel like a lecture because we don't want that. I'm very proud of this. I'm thankful that I was able to get it done, and it was an accomplishment that I've always wanted to make happen. Yes. And Jeannie, I was so quiet about it for so long because I really thought, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? And so I just got a little bold and I started asking questions, and it became this whole, oh, you too? So it's been so fun. I get a message every now and then from somebody. I think of you every time I pull out my tweezers, or I think of you, fill in the blank. And it's so much fun because we're not alone. We are in this together in all of its goofiness and messy. And when we remember that, life is better. Life is hard, but we can, when we recognize, hey, we're in this together, we can support each other and take a little bit of risk and some of that vulnerability. You'll be surprised at you will understand you are not alone in so many things.
Wow. Thanks for making a difference. Thanks for being vulnerable. That's what you did in your book. Become vulnerable. And let's face it, with AI and this and that, where it's robotized, everything, being real, being human is what is going to make us stand out from all the noise that's going on out there, how pretty they make it sound. Hey, there's still life and there's still things that happen. And so, yeah, we need to communicate out there, make a difference the best we can. And I love the fact that the colors enable us to taint our conversations so we can communicate. My dad said always, it's the same effort to build a bridge or to build a wall. Why don't you build bridges? Because walls makes no sense. Anyways, so thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. So, Kelly, our last question is, if you could provide the world one tip to make it a better place, what would that be?
I am naturally a sensitive person. I was that kid that couldn't watch certain commercials because I would start crying. And I remember my parents, who came up very tough, they said, you can't change the world. And I will not disrespect my parents in any way. I'm very grateful. However, I think you can change the world. You don't get to maybe change the entire world, but you can impact your community. If you get to impact one person sending me a message. I got a text one day. I want you to hear how proud I am of myself. I stood up at the doctor's office and advocated for myself because she had found some of her inner leadership. Y'all, game on. There's nothing to me that's more exciting. Is that going to show up on the headline of a magazine? No. But that person's life was impacted and I got to be a little part of that. So that would be the question that would be what I would say to people is, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
I love that. That is perfect. Kelly, we appreciate you. We're grateful that there are people in the world like you and that you are helping so many others. Speaking of, how can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
I think the easiest way is to go to my website. It's simply www.kellyknowles.net. There is a link to the book. There are links to the various programs. One of the things that if you click on the link for the book, there is a free journal. So you can actually get a PDF journal of the book. One of the things I'm working on is putting that into a published format. But I have, at the end of each chapter in the book, I have what's called reflections. And sometimes people need time to process. And so I put together a journal called Looking in the Mirror. And that is a free journal that is on that website. But it's simply kellyknowles.net. There's a place where you can schedule a quick call and so on. Probably the easiest way to catch me.
Wonderful. We'll put that in the show notes so people can check that out. And I'm just so grateful for you to come and join us today, Kelly, and share your knowledge.
Oh, I'm the same way. Thank you for letting me join you. I'm honored and I look forward to hearing more of your programming. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us today on Blueprints for Brilliance Coaching Insights. We hope you're leaving this episode with inspiration to take your coaching business and your life to the next level. If you found value in this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe and share it with someone else who you think might benefit from hearing it. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.